Ever since I was a kid, I liked the idea of living in the countryside. I always thought that one could do something in this family farm. I never understood or even accepted that it would go to wreck and ruin. Agriculture has been around for thousands of years, and there were none of the technologies we have now to farm the land.
Fields that used to grow rain-fed cereals over the last decade have been used for growing broccoli, lettuce, and other crops that need irrigation. For me, this is a step backwards, and I see it as a threat. The threat of desertification in this territory can be reversed as one learns new techniques, other ways of farming the land. And the main way to do it is through regenerative agriculture. It helps us restore our soils, harvest water, and recover biodiversity. And it revitalizes our community. If we want different things to happen, we need to do things differently.
AlVelAl is an initiative that seeks to restore the steppe ecosystem of the highlands of Murcia, Granada, and Almeria. And the way we are doing it is following Common Land's 4 returns framework, which involve not only reviving the local economy, but also having social, environmental, and inspirational impacts. So it becomes something that can be replicated, so people who see these examples get inspired to replicate them in other places.
Farmers here give a lot of importance to keeping the ground clean. Someone is considered a good or a bad farmer depending on how he keeps the ground clean or with vegetation. This has caused a lot of harm to our landscape, especially to the soils that sustain the crops. And another factor has been the use of poisons, chemical fertilizers that have done a lot of harm in agriculture. It reached a point where farmers couldn't do without these chemical products. That was never the case in the past.
I started to work with agricultural chemicals at a time where anything goes, and that was a real disaster. To keep an orange from spoiling, they'd spray it with 8 to 10 to 12 products. That's what needs to change, the mindset. This is the main challenge we have right now.
For us, regenerative agriculture goes beyond organic agriculture. It includes restoring soils, harvesting water, recovering biodiversity, and revitalizing local communities.
Compost is one of the techniques in regenerative agriculture that helps regenerate soils and capture CO2. We add sheep manure, straw, mix them with soil microorganisms that we collect from under our oak trees. We propagate the microorganisms and mix them with the straw and molasses at a certain temperature and humidity. We also add nutrients like iron, ash for potassium. It's kind of like a recipe. Each farmer has his own way. In our case, we do it using resources of our farm. And this is not only helping our soils to recover, since it improves their fertility and increases agricultural production, but it also is one of the best ways to fight against climate change.
Regenerative agriculture goes a step beyond. It strives for improvement. It returns back to the soil all the nutrients it has given to us. A regenerative farmer works towards improving the quality of the soil.
Here there's already a centimetre of topsoil. It's much easier to harbour life in this soil than in the ashes we had before. I used to be Mr. Plower #1, and all this green cover business, well, I didn't buy it. But now I'm convinced, and capable to convince anyone. I can demonstrate it any day.
What is happening now in AlVelAl could be replicated anywhere else. We are evaluating green covers in experimental farms, both natural covers and green covers planted by farmers, usually with a mixture of vetch, rye and oats. We are evaluating crop productivity as it relates to the composition of green covers. We want to understand better how green covers work. Measure how the soil improves, how organic matter increases, and in parallel, how all this affects crop production, since, after all, crops need to be profitable for the farmer. Here, it rains very little, but when it rains, it tends to be torrential. We need to stop this loss of water and topsoil and the great erosion it causes.
You think you've got 70 litres of rainfall, but your land has only retained 20, and the other 50 wash away, eroding everything along the way, taking the best fertile soil with it, and not infiltrating into the land. One of the techniques we use here is to build swales, infiltration lines that follow the topographic contour of the land. Their function is to retain water, control erosion, and they are also very useful for crop diversification. Even with heavy rains, swales allow water to soak into the ground, preventing runoff. Water is retained along the length of the contour lines and also in small pools. The sediment they retain creates strips that are especially moist and more fertile than the rest of the land. They help retain lots of water and nutrients in the soil, which is the best place for it to be. In my farm, we've made 7 kilometers of infiltration lines. We are planting aromatics plants to increase biodiversity and attract insects. I'm learning that nature is much wiser than experts. If we study nature and see how it deals with problems, we just have to imitate her. After all, the agriculture we're practicing now, what we call regenerative agriculture, it's very similar to agriculture practiced by our grandparents and great-grandparents.
Diversity is key at all levels: soil diversity, crop diversity, and diversity at the landscape level. We promote the conversion of almond monocultures into diversified production systems. On the one side, we restore soils with compost and protect them with green cover. Local Segurano sheep can be part of the system. They serve as firefighters, eating the grass and reducing fire risk in the summer. They also help aerate and fertilize the soil. Regenerative farms are also diversified by adding aromatic plants. They fix and protect the soil and are the perfect home for pollinators. Pollinators also serve as a bridge between the natural and the productive areas. Among the many pollinators, bees provide yet another business opportunity. They give us honey, pollen, propolis, and royal jelly. Plus, they increase the productivity of the almond trees. For any family, it's more profitable and less risky to have a diversified farm. It's better for the ecosystem, helps recover soils, capture water, and boost biodiversity. Part of the land degradation problem has to do with European agricultural policies, which have traditionally favoured monocultures over crop diversification. In addition, the more land you own, the higher your chances of getting a subsidy. This really harms small farmers and rural life at large. If you diversify your farm by mixing almond trees with aromatics and other cash crops, you might even lose your subsidies. So policies that favour monocultures at a large scale have been very damaging both for rural life and for biodiversity. We need policies that allow ecology and economy to go hand in hand.
In this area, we have approximately 100,000 hectares of almond trees. Most of them are rain-fed, with no irrigation. Approximately 50,000 hectares are certified organic and almost 15,000 hectares are being transformed towards regenerative. We've supported hundreds of farmers to transition to regenerative practices. We sell our regenerative products, like our almonds, in many countries, showing that rural places can achieve a better future by making nature and economy work together, not as enemies, because they're not. Working with nature is very important for the future we are facing.
Some people are not there yet, but more and more people are realizing that with this approach, not only can they earn a living, but they can live really well, while at the same time they can improve this land we've inherited, a land that has given us so much and that we are destroying. So, if we don't start doing something, there will be nothing left for the next generation. In AlVelAl, we are creating many regenerative farms that are inspirational models for other neighbouring farms. This generates a multiplier effect. But we also have a macro vision. What do we want to achieve? That this degraded land, where life can barely thrive, becomes a source of biodiversity and also an ecological corridor that connects the northern and southern mountain ranges. These ranges are protected natural parks, and they are sources of biodiversity. With these regenerative farms, we can create a mosaic landscape of wooded areas with diversified almond and olive groves, intermixed with steppe-like areas with diversified cereal fields. We will end up with a productive mosaic of steppe and wooded areas that harbours biodiversity and serves as an ecological corridor between the northern and southern mountain ranges. Altogether, we could revitalise 1.3 million hectares of habitat for life, animal life, plant life, and human life.
The last two generations were brought up with industrialization, like my father, who has been doing the same type of farming for 60 years. This has always been a source of conflict. This regenerative thing is where we've had a lot of confrontations, different points of view. First, I need to see to believe, so I look at the health of the trees, and the trees are incredibly healthy. The facts speak for themselves. Among my satisfactions, I have a neighbor who is even a bit older than me. He said my son was crazy some years ago. And now what he says is that I am plowing 4 times a year and my trees are drying out. But your trees look healthy. What do you feed them at night? And I say, at night I give them the moon and the rain, the same that falls for everyone. That's all. And nothing else.
Education is key to social transformation. We seek to teach our children the need to care for their landscape. Children are amazed when you ask them about their landscape. And this capacity for wonder can be transformed into passion and love. Inspiration is about spending less time in our heads, our intellect. Reach our hearts and move to our hands, to act. We need to align head, heart and hands. Bringing heart and hands together has much to do with creativity.
For me, this is a land of opportunities. There are a lot of prejudices about rural life, but these are outdated attitudes because previous limitations no longer exist. Living in a farm does not mean living in isolation. Here, we are constantly interacting with many different types of people. People from other countries, people with different mentalities. For me, this is the perfect place.
I envision a prosperous land with people who are rooted and proud, and others who visit curious to learn from what we're doing. This is what excites us most.